For today's discussion, we're going to look at some cancer statistics from 2011. These are the most current statistics out from the American Cancer Society, and they include some projections kind of as the year 2011 was coming to a close, as well as then looks at some data that was in from some census data from years past. So thanks to the American Cancer Society for putting all this stuff together for us today. One of the first things we're going to look at from 2011, and these are estimated cancer deaths for the U.S., is kind of the amazing statistics in terms of the numbers of people in the U.S. that die from cancer-related deaths each year. And so in just the last year, because all the data from the last year is not fully in yet, we are showing estimated numbers of close to 300,000 men and women each dying from cancer-related deaths. And you can see they have then branched that out into the specific types of cancer, and that lung and bronchus cancer for both men and for women are by far the highest. The one that is purely related to men, prostate cancer, as we saw with some of the discussion from human reproductive system stuff, men are the only ones to have a prostate, and 11% of the cancer-related deaths in men are related to prostate cancer, whereas in women, 15% of them are related to breast cancer. Men can also get breast cancer. It is possible, as they do have breast tissue, but you can see they did not make this list over on this side for men. It would fall down into that 22% in other sites, relatively rare in men. This shows some overall trends over the years of cancer-related deaths from men and women decreasing since about the early 1990s. We're seeing an overall decrease in rate, and so it's the rate per 100,000. So if there were 100,000 people, how many would we expect to die from cancer-related deaths? And you can see that number fluctuating between 150 to 250 out of every 100,000, and that has been decreasing since, you can see right around here, the early 1990s, which that would be a very good thing to point out, that we're doing something right, either catching it earlier or doing something to prevent these cancer-related deaths. This shows among men some of the changes since the 1930s to 2007, some of the changes that have occurred with cancer-related deaths. And you can see the one to go up, 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 up is lung and bronchus cancer. Now, the good news is it has been decreasing again since about the early 1990s, but it was just skyrocketing in terms of the number of deaths related to it. We'll see a connection to that in just a moment. Prostate cancer, you can see, went up a little bit as well. Could be related to some similar factors that would lead to lung and bronchus cancer. A lot of the other ones fluctuated a little but did not change all that much over the last 75 years or so. In women, we see some similar trends. We see an increase again in lung and bronchus cancer, and it kind of leveled out now in the last 20 years, not seeing the drop that men are seeing. But breast cancer has been, you can see, decreasing since about the early 1990s, which is another good thing to recognize. Others have been decreasing over time or staying relatively similar, but those two have, in recent times, really had some of the greatest changes. This is a graph of tobacco use in the U.S., and you can see that the per capita cigarette consumption has gone up, 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 and peaked out kind of in the mid-1900s, 1950s to 1970s. And that, you can see, is then followed by a relatively large increase in the number of deaths related to lung and bronchus cancer in both males and females. Both of them have kind of reached their peaks early in the 1990s. So that would end up being about 25, 30 years after people were smoking a lot. It makes sense that it would have taken some time and a lot of cigarette consumption over that time by those individuals to really damage the lung tissue and lead to lung cancer and lung-related cancer deaths. So an interesting correlation between those two events. This one just shows U.S. cancer cases. You can see when it comes to men and women that have some form of cancer in 2011, the prostate cancer and the breast cancer are top of the list. So more men and women have these two types of cancers, but they weren't top of the list for deaths. Although lung and bronchus cancer come in second, with individuals having 14% of individuals that have cancer have that type of cancer, it does lead to more deaths. One of the things you might notice on here is that something like skin cancer, relatively low in terms of the number of people that have it. And I think if you would go back and look at the actual deaths in both cases, in men and women, I think it fell into the other sites. It wasn't even making its own category in terms of being very deadly, but is at least prevalent enough to make the list here in kind of a top 10 list. When it comes to actual cancer incidence, you can see there has been a rise. More and more people have been getting cancer. There was a peak here again in the early 1990s, showing that that's kind of where there was a higher number of individuals that had cancer, and now due to probably more preventative stuff and more early detection, we are seeing lower rates over time because we're just becoming more aware of this. This is probably the scariest one for me to think about, and it says lifetime probability of men developing cancer in any part of the body. So that says, you know, all sites here, all sites of the body, the chance of men having cancer sometime in their life is 1 in 2. So flip a coin, there's your chances of having cancer. Or, you know, 2 guys sitting in a room talking to each other, one of those 2 guys is likely to develop cancer within their lifetime. Does not say die from, but lifetime probability of developing. And then they go through and list out some of the chances of developing specific types of cancer. 1 in 6 of it being prostate cancer, 1 in 13 of lung and bronchus cancer, and you can kind of see the list there down below. You're more than welcome to pause the video at any time and stay on one of these slides for a longer period of time if needed. Women, chances are ever so slightly less of developing cancer. And it's any site, again, is a 1 in 3 chance of developing cancer in any site in the body. Breast cancer being, again, the most common, just like it was prostate cancer in men. In all sites, your chances of surviving 5 years after being developed or diagnosed with cancer was 50% chance. Now you have a greater chance in the 80s of surviving 5 years, and in the late 90s to early 2000s, an even greater chance of surviving 5 or more years. You can see that different types of cancers have greater chances of survival. Lung and bronchus cancer is still relatively low. That means it's fairly deadly, and we saw that as one of the statistics earlier. Pancreatic cancer, though, on the other hand, is incredibly deadly. Only about 6%, so 6 out of every 100 people that are diagnosed with pancreas cancer are likely to survive 5 or more years. Incredibly dangerous, incredibly deadly, because it damages so much important tissue in the body, especially tissues that secrete enzymes into the digestive system and hormones that control a lot of our blood sugars and other bodily functions. Prostate cancer, you can see nowadays, is about 100% survival rate for 5 years. With early detection, it is very likely to survive that type of cancer for men, but certainly it does require some early detection and screenings, and as men get older, they are asked to go in and have prostate screenings done, just as women are asked to have the breast tissue checked for lumps and things like that, using a couple of different techniques as they get older. I think that's about all we're going to go through today. Just a couple of interesting statistics to point out. There are certainly more statistics from the American Cancer Society that you can check out on their webpage. The slideshow that I found was quite long, and there was some really good stuff on there, but I wanted to just hit some of those highlights. A couple of the other videos that I'm asking you to watch this week in class will also help you better understand, what it means to have cancer and how cancer kind of works in the body. And we'll develop this further and do some sort of a project with it before the end of this unit.